Kenneth Cooke gave a morning devotion talk entitled Avoid Deception and Follow the Kingdom. When an organization that is built on deception tells you to avoid deception, there is some serious projection going on there. Deception, the Watchtower organization, a bunch of men have 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses believing a ridiculous lie that Jesus appointed a faithful and discreet slave in 1919. Now, that is one very effective bit of deception. And then there is something rather interesting about the topic as well, because as you talk about deception, you think about how this organization actually started. Zion's Watchtower is the first publication, Zion's Watchtower and Herald of Christ's Presence. So many Bible students believed the lie, so many of them deceived, that Christ's invisible presence began in 1874. They believed that the world was going to end in 1914. And what is interesting about that and the topic? Not only were they deceived, but the very interesting thing is that they are consistently being deceived on the subject of what? The kingdom. The kingdom. Christ's invisible presence in 1874 related to the kingdom. The world ending in 1914 is all about, as Russell pointed out in his book, The Time is at Hand, how Christ would come, overthrow all Gentile kingdoms, and the new kingdom for which Jehovah's Witnesses have been praying, let thy kingdom come, would have been fully set up on earth. Wrong about the kingdom. And then when 1914 failed, you know the story. 1918. The kingdom was again going to be firmly established on earth. God was going to destroy millions of Christians. Did not happen. In 1925, when you think about Beth Sarim, house of the princes, does the word kingdom come to mind? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, so many patriarchs in the Old Testament would have been resurrected to become princes on earth. And if that was not deceptive enough, the Bible students believed that they would be living in California, United States. The kingdom. What does Jehovah's Witnesses know about the kingdom? And the irony about it all is that they believe that they understand the kingdom over and above every other Christian church there is. When they taught or expected that 1975 would have been a pivotal year, it would mark 6,000 years of man's existence, and it would be fitting for the 1,000-year Sabbath to be ushered in. And so, stay alive until 1975. What was that about? Yes, you guessed it, the kingdom. And the kingdom would have been established after all those failures by the year 2000. The year 2000 came and it passed. And so in 2014, they are celebrating 100 years of kingdom rule. These people are so deluded about the kingdom, but they are far more deluded in thinking that they understand it above everyone else. And so now you are being told to avoid deception and follow the kingdom. Follow the kingdom. I like to follow Christ. Follow the kingdom. Where is the kingdom going that I should follow it? What do they mean by follow the kingdom? Let's hear a bit of Kenneth Cooke's talk.
Today's printed comments consider how Satan has blurred people's view of Jehovah. Satan has blurred their view or blinded people by means of apostate teachings.
Sometimes I wonder if Jehovah's Witnesses use the word apostate more than they use the word sin. I guess not. But this loaded term apostate, everything negative is apostate. Apostate teachings. What are apostate teachings? What is apostasy? Would apostate teachings be the doctrines taught by the Watchtower organization today that were not taught by Russell and the Bible students? Have they apostatized from the original doctrines of the organization? All of this geared at getting Jehovah's Witnesses to look on former members with the most disdain and resentment that they possibly can. Former members must be looked on as the ultimate evil.
And by seeing to it that God's name has been removed from many copies of the Bible.
Satan has gotten people to remove God's name from the scriptures. How does that change people's view of Jehovah? Does it mean that people believe that Jehovah doesn't have a name?
For this morning's discussion, we want to consider a related concern, and that is, what current and future events in Satan's world could blur our view of God's kingdom if we're not careful?
Well, I noted that he said it would change our views, our being his target audience, Jehovah's Witnesses, because I don't see how any of those things are going to affect my view of God's kingdom.
With each point, we'll tie in the principle found in these words in Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 23, where it says, I well know, O Jehovah, that man's way does not belong to him. It does not belong to man who is walking even to direct his step. With this in mind, we're going to look at how widespread protests, political promises, and claims of peace and security could distort our view of God's kingdom if we're not careful. First, widespread protests. When protests sweep through any country, there's often someone leading the way with a very loud or persuasive voice. True? And their message usually touches on something that many see as an injustice. Whether the protest involves dozens, hundreds, or thousands of people, most of the protesters are followers, and they repeat a message or slogan. The problem is that the solutions they seek are human solutions.
Wouldn't it be interesting to see people demonstrating one day against God because the outcome that they want is something that God is supposed to do?
The problem is that the solutions they seek are human solutions.
The problem is the solutions they seek are human solutions. And I have news for Kenneth Cooke and for Jehovah's Witnesses. Quite often, they get the human solutions that they seek. So what does he mean by suggesting that that is the problem with their protest?
Recall Jeremiah's words, "It does not belong to man, even to direct his step." What danger do such protests pose for true Christians? The danger is this: If we get caught up in the spirit of popular protests, even slightly supporting a cause, even silently within our heart, we could find our view of God's kingdom growing dim. What in turn could that lead to?
How much control is this organization seeking to have over the lives of Jehovah's Witnesses? If you live in a country where the government has decided to ban the use of the Bible in schools, would you, as a Jehovah's Witness, have a position on that? And if you were to join that protest, how is that going to weaken your perception or adjust your perception of what God's kingdom is? How is that going to weaken your faith in God's kingdom? And what is interesting is that you are being told, obviously, that's the message, that you should not participate in these demonstrations, these protests. But now Cooke is telling you that if you silently support the cause in your heart, what's going to happen to you?
The problem is that the solutions they seek are human solutions. Well, when people in the world lack clear direction or hope, their hearts often start to be filled with anger and rage. A servant of God can feel such things too, if he or she loses sight of the kingdom. Consider for a moment what happened to those who followed after King David's son, Absalom. The Bible explains that Absalom objected to his father's rulership, but he did more than that. Through cunning words and actions, he gathered a following. You can read about what he did at 2 Samuel chapter 15 and verses 2 through 6. He promised the people justice, and verse 6 says that Absalom kept stealing the hearts of the men of Israel. In other words, the people got caught up in his message. Eventually, those who joined him turned violent, and the outcome was disastrous. Yes, even the hearts of those who worship Jehovah can be stolen or captured, or as today's text says, led astray for a misguided or bad purpose. So that is the danger, and we can be certain that Satan knows it.
I have never seen a bunch of Christians so fragile.
Not to mention paranoid. It's pathetic.
Every little thing is a danger to their faith.
And we can be certain that Satan knows it.
Let us say that there is a people who are being paid below minimum wage, and others are protesting against it, that they be paid better. Poor people. How does the faith of a Jehovah's Witness become weakened if they silently think these people should be paid more?
There's no question that Satan is right now using various messages of protest to direct people away from the real solution, God's kingdom.
An elder at my church once said, it's the first time I heard it, that some people are so heavenly minded. Well, in the case of Jehovah's Witnesses, they will be paradise, earth minded, that there are no earthly good. In their case, no current earth good. So if people demonstrate for better working conditions, they should look to God's kingdom to give them better working conditions. If governments decide to remove Bibles from schools and people protest that, should they be expecting it is God's kingdom that is going to restore Bibles in school? If people are demonstrating about bad road conditions, is God's kingdom going to fix the roads? you call this religious fanaticism. Just so absolutely ridiculous. There are some problems that a society has that you're not going to sit down and wait on God's kingdom to fix. It's so absolutely amazing. So let me ask Kenneth Cooke, why don't they just sit down and wait on God's kingdom to fix the situation with the government benefits, the state benefits that they will no longer be getting in Norway? Why take the government to court?
While there are over 700 religious communities who continue to receive such state benefits, this decision is unconstitutional and an unprecedented attack on religious freedom in Norway. With the assistance of the newly established Freedom of Worship Office, we're pursuing legal remedies.
They are suing in another country. I'm forgetting the details now. I saw at the Berry and Pickett's channel where the Watchtower is suing some former victims of the organization. Why don't they just wait on the kingdom to solve that problem? Jehovah's Witnesses are being persecuted in Russia. Why not just wait on God's kingdom to fix it? Why appeal to the powers that be for assistance? Why go to the courts to have any matter litigated instead of just waiting on God's kingdom to fix it? Religious fanaticism.
And Satan will cast his net wide to try to capture some of Jehovah's people if possible. To avoid that and remain focused on the kingdom, we must not forget what Isaiah 42 and verse 1 promises about Jesus. There it foretells that he will bring justice to the nations. He will, not humans.
I'm going to end this nonsensical talk right here. This is going to send... I'm going to say send... Why do Jehovah's Witnesses have a judicial committee? Do they know what the word judicial means? Why do they go to courts if not to seek justice? Ladies and gentlemen, it almost feels, I feel silly commenting on this nonsense. So I'm going to end this video here. I thought that, oh boy, I thought that Kenneth Cooke was going to give me something to comment on. Yes, I never watched the entire talk before. I really should have. Because then I could have... I don't know how Jehovah's Witnesses sit down and listen to all this nonsense. God's kingdom is going to eradicate injustices ultimately. But in the meantime, it doesn't mean that you ignore injustice. He hath showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee? But to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. It should be the natural desire of a child of God to love to see justice done. When there is evil in your world, you want to see justice prevail. And the thing to do is not to sit down waiting on the return of Christ for it to happen. There are things that you can do here and now to make your circumstances here and now better. Someone needs to explain to Sam Cooke, to Kenneth Cooke, and Jehovah's Witnesses, just what Jesus meant when he said, give to Caesar what is Caesar, and to God what is God. Have mercy. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Have yourselves a wonderful day.
May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.